Thank you for joining us today on the HealingUs Podcast. We are joined by CEO Daniel Regan, as well as Steve Sunquist and Sam Hewitt from Ascend Recovery Centers. Thanks so much for joining the show, guys, and welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, you guys are obviously zooming in from Florida, where you're based. And, Steve, we just wanted to jump right into kind of your story and the development of your detox facility in Port Charlotte, Florida. Obviously, that's kind of down the street from our facility, Calusa Recovery, and that's how we got connected a couple of years ago. And just excited to hear, how your journey's going.
Yeah, so I don't think, all of this, is possible without, the journey that I went down, right, with struggling with my own addiction and overdosing twice in a 24-hour period, having had 8 shots of Narcan in one day. I mean, thank God for those first responders that saved my life, because I wouldn't be here on this podcast if it hadn't been for them, right? But I feel like, finding out my why and my purpose in life has always been to help others. It's just kind of been revealed to me through the work that I did through recovery. But I mean, I always had this thought of putting together a program that's small and intimate and something that works, right? Something that's making an impact. And we did just that. And, obviously there were some hurdles along the way, which I'm sure we'll discuss here in a little bit, but, it's been nothing short of everything I've ever imagined, and it's just really cool to see, everything come full circle with, playing a part in helping someone change their life. I mean, with the program that you had envisioned creating for so long, and now it's here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, we talked a little bit before we turned the cameras on. You also brought a baby girl into the world. So congratulations. So
thank you so much.
Jumping into go ahead.
8 months old. She's a beautiful little thing. What a blessing,
That's amazing. But jumping into fatherhood and entrepreneurial ship at the same time, I'm sure was a crazy year.
It's been a perfect storm, and like, and that's why, like, I'm very vulnerable with like my transparency with what I'm going through, just because I feel like people receive that more, right? You picture, it's someone from the outside looking in would think, oh, he's got it all together, but I still struggle, right? And I feel like that's the stuff that people need to hear, right? With the transparency of where I'm at. It was a perfect storm, bringing a baby girl into this world, trying to start a detox, with all the staffing needs, the marketing, and just everything. It was just overwhelming, so, I'm transparent with where I'm at all the time. I feel like, that's how people heal, regardless if, it's helping me or someone else.
Totally. Absolutely. So Sam, talk to us a little bit about the acquisition with Ascend and how you and Steve came to partner and kind of the future of Port Charlotte Detox and where it's headed.
Yeah, for sure. So Ascend Recovery Centers was, we started building out Ascend Recovery Centers over the last 18 months. We've had the same kind of vision that we have really aligned with Steve with we're building out smaller centers that are small and intimate, and every patient that walks through the doors gets that one-on-one care that everybody really truly needs and deserves. So we connected with Steve. We've both been in the industry for a long time. We've never actually met each other prior to this. We all just knew of everybody, never actually met. So when we connected, Steve actually approached myself and my partner regarding the merger with Port Charlotte and Ascend. And after we talked about our vision and like everything that we aligned with, it just made so much sense. Our values were all on the same page. The vision that we had to build out small facilities, we just aligned with that so well that the partnership just was, it was almost like a no-brainer, right? And we just felt that it just made sense. So we finalized all of that a handful of months ago, earlier this year. And since then, it's just been a blessing to have Port Charlotte on our partnership team now. And, being able to serve that location. We don't have anything over on the west coast of Florida. And there's so many resources there that are still needed, So for us, it was just an opportunity to bring more services over there and support Steve on his mission.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the strength of what Ascend brings to someone like Steve, who has the vision and the drive and the passion and the small, facility and everything like that. But you do need that powerhouse of people that know the billing and they know how to navigate all the challenges of owning a business in this industry. What are some of, as people in recovery, what are some of your favorite aspects of working in the addiction space?
I think just go ahead, Sam.
No, you can.
Oh, I just wanted to talk about just being a small part, right? Whether it's a community member and, providing a resource, or, watching someone change that, people have kind of written off, or, that's the environment that I wanted to cultivate, right? Someone, needs help, right? People have written them off, well, come get sober with us, and I just always wanted to create a safe place where people felt loved and valued and heard, right? I mean, that's what's most important to us.
Absolutely. I know, for me being in this industry, it's a lot of the reason why I'm still sober today. Just being there and helping others and keeping myself green at the same time, of remembering being in that person's shoes, and seeing myself in them, where, it keeps that balance and that humility that is vitally needed for successful recovery at the end of the day.
How about you, Sam?
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree with what you guys both said, really helping each other, helping everybody that walks the doors. We're not going to be able to help every single person that we serve, on a daily basis. But what Steve said about those success stories, that's really what it comes down to for us. I mean, in this industry, it's it's a lot. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of heartache that's involved too, with seeing people that just don't get it, but hearing those success stories with somebody that's like, hey, it's been a year now, and they're doing well and they're thriving, or, then after you stay in the industry for a long time. I know people from, my other centers that now own and operate centers after 15 years of being clean, and going through that. And like, that's that full circle moment when you're really realizing you're making an actual impact.
Yeah, I'd like to share with you guys a personal story of one of the clients that came through. Obviously, I won't say his name to protect his, anonymity, right? But, this client, I was working with him and his mom for a few days, and his mom and I really kind of, got close, right? And she trusted me. So his mom brought, her son to our detox, and I spoke with her in the parking lot, and, her son was just not present, right? I mean, a lot of anger and frustration, resentment towards his family, right? He gave his mom a hug, and he came inside and started his process with us. And we found out the next morning that his mom passed away from a heart attack. And that was something that we had to strategically bring up to him. And, it was right that he was notified, because, we don't want to withhold anything. I mean, I felt like the team that we had in place, everything was just happening, how it was supposed to, right? With having the staff there to comfort him, with having all the support. That guy ended up staying with us for 4 weeks. And I just followed up with him a few months ago, and he's still sober, has 13 months sober. I mean, like that right there is why we do what we do. Despite any challenges or, devastation that a client goes through, we are here to uplift you and make you feel supported.
Amazing. And thank you for sharing that story. It's I think that's why it's so monumental what we do in this industry. It's the things that you deal with that you're not even expecting. You're bringing someone in to detox them, and then all of a sudden they're hit with probably the most catastrophic event of their life, but they're in a safe space, and it's a really incredible story.
And you teach somebody to get through something like that, and keep their head throughout that process. And that person now can go, whenever they face adversity or challenge going forward in life, they go, I got through something worse than this before.
Exactly.
Right. And that's what really changes the game for people in recovery. And it's awesome that your facility and your staff are able to provide something like that kind of experience for someone through something so tragic.
Yeah. And then I guess on the other side of the coin, I'd love to know, just from both of your experiences, what do you find the most challenging aspects of working in this industry, and how do you maintain, your poise as a business owner while also maintaining your own recovery going through those challenges? Steve, if you want to kick it off.
I mean, the first challenge that we've experienced has been staffing. I feel like it's like a nationwide thing at this point. And obviously, Dan, we've been talking about that for quite some time, but I think it's also like a stigma thing, with just like, people talk, right? And, I feel like our reviews speak for themselves, right? And that was ultimately my mission. But I think, staying within ethics, always providing honest and good, effective treatment, you're not going to lose. You won't. And, I think it really comes down to how good is your staff, right? Because I can't do everything myself. I need the right people in place to be effective with the clients with how they need it.
Yeah. And Sam, go ahead. I'll let you kind of follow up to that and then ask you a question.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, for us what I've noticed, one of the biggest struggles, it's a staff piece, but it's what they do for themselves to stay well while working in this industry. Being in industry for some time, you see people that experience burnout. If they're in recovery working in this field, they're using that as their recovery instead of actually doing what they need to do outside of it. This isn't a placeholder working in our industry for your own personal recovery if you are in it. And like knowing that, right, and being aware of that, and knowing when you need to take a break or you need to take a step back or go see a therapist, like work on yourself too. I'm a big proponent that like if I can't present to somebody or talk to them about being well if I'm not taking care of myself outside of work. Exactly. And if everyone else is doing that, then we can show up the best for our clients every day.
Yeah. And I think do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we find it in our industry a lot. I myself, a person in recovery, and I got into social work school because, hey, it's something that I'm interested in and I have lived experience, so I feel connected to, right? Most people in the helping professions have some kind of lived experience, whether, in their childhood home, there might have been mental health or addiction issues, or themselves had mental health or addiction issues. And so we have to automatically already know that is going to come with the staff that we have that come in. So investing in your staff, being cognizant that they're going through their own stuff, and developing a corporate culture to deal with that is vitally important to have a successful treatment program for the clients, right? And, unfortunately, there is good and bad, right? There are people that are still working on their stuff that have the credentials. There's other people that have worked through that. But in our industry and mental health, addiction, behavioral health in general, there is a big common factor that we deal with when it comes to staffing.
Yeah. And I think, for someone in recovery to also join the industry, it's a bit of, it's one of those things where they make the best therapist or person to advocate for a client, but at the same time, it's also their safe space where they found their healing. So there's a fine line of not getting burnt out in that safe space, right? It's kind of like waitressing at your favorite restaurant is what I can relate it to from my perspective. You see the back end of the kitchen, you see all the other stuff that goes on, and you're like, oh, this restaurant's not as fun as I thought as when I came as, yeah. So it does reveal a lot. I think you have to have really good self-care and just practices in place to prepare for that.
And I know we're all operators of different treatment centers, and I think I went into this industry with rose-colored glasses. I came from the nonprofit world, in the trenches, kicking down doors, intervention, saving people, doing whatever. It's not. I didn't have an accreditation body that's regulating me, or licensures, or any of that administration stuff that goes into operating a treatment center, which gave me the freedom to kind of help however I needed to help in that moment, which was fantastic. And we could think on the fly, and we did amazing work. And then I jump into this highly regulated, box with 900 plates to spin. In the nonprofit world, I got to, raise money, which is a monster in and of itself, but, fairly simple comparatively to dealing with insurance companies, so I went in with rose-colored glasses thinking like, okay, this is going to be great. We're going to be doing the same type of work that we did in the nonprofit, and like, it's just going to go smooth. And then you jump into this and you're like, oh, wait, that's what insurances do? That's how you have to go about it? They denied what? Like, and then staffing and payroll, and then you got accreditation bodies, and you got to do all this data and research, which was great, but it was a learning experience at first, learning how to balance all those plates. And those early stages of opening a company, I was much like you, Steve. I just had my daughter 3 months prior to opening up my freehold location. So I was in the throes of fatherhood. I didn't take a paycheck for a good 2 years. So I was living off savings, struggling every which way as you can, and just rose-colored glasses ready to jump into this. And, my recovery took a hit in the sense that everything became about the business, because that everything's going to fail if I don't make this work kind of deal. So then, I'm not doing my meditation as much as I should. I'm not going to the gym as much as I used to, all those kind of things. And you get spread thin really quick. So what are some of the things that you guys have done to kind of recollect yourselves? Because I see you nodding your head. So obviously we all had similar situations. It's a common occurrence. What did you guys do? What did you implement to kind of wind yourself back and get back to roots?
Yeah. So before we started recording, we were kind of discussing it a little bit, and I love, once again, being vulnerable. I mean, I feel like there's so much strength behind that. I too, Dan, I mean, that's been me, right? Just having that mindset that this thing is not going to fail. And I put it before a couple of things in my life that are important. Right. And, I mean, for me, my routine has to be consistent. I have to be disciplined with that, because once I lack, then it's going to trickle into something else in my life, and I'm going to start putting something ahead of that. So for me, what I need to do, I love meditation too. I like taking care of my body, fitness. The sauna is really good. Sunlight is really good for helping someone feel energized, to decrease those cortisol levels of stress. But I feel like for me, having a morning routine, whatever it is, right? For instance, I do like a little reading, a little reflection, and then I'll watch the Pep Talk app, depending on what topic that I want to, hear about that day. That app's awesome. Aside from that, I like to stay connected with people that are on the same page as me, being, having that vulnerability and that connection. I mean, that's literally everything. And that's what recovery is based off to me, right? I mean, just, sharing your truth with someone that, understands and just gives you that ability to free yourself from whatever you're holding on to, or asking for advice, or, whatever it is that you're going through. I feel like having your tribe is so crucial, man. And I kind of felt that, right, at times, and I lacked doing the things that I needed to do to preserve my own mental health and my own well-being, and throughout that time, you start to feel it, right? And then the depression sits in, and, and then you're scrambling, and then you're overexerting yourself in areas that don't need it. And then it's quick too, how fast it can just fall apart, but I feel like, with where I've been, and recognizing, okay, this doesn't feel right. What can I do? How can I better myself? And that's just always been my mindset in my recovery, of just how can I get better each and every day,
Yeah, like they say, the opposite of addiction is connection. I think that applies for mental health, any kind of recovery that you might find yourself. Whatever our ailment is, it's trying to disconnect us from life, right? And for me, I know the red flags that I'm disconnecting, right? Maybe I'm in my phone too much when I go back home, instead of talking to my wife or playing with my kids, or, just not plugging into my wellness, not getting into the sunlight, wanting to sit inside. I could feel that disconnection start happening, and that's a big red flag. Dan, you got to do something, Right. So Sam, how about yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think having some separation is huge, where it's really easy to become a workaholic per se, when it comes to when you're if you have a mission, and especially if you're super passionate about it. And we deal with humans, and not, I always say, we deal with humans. We don't deal with pizza. We're not selling hot dogs. It's we have a lot of pressure against us with everything that goes into the facilities. Like you said, coming from a nonprofit world, now you come here, now it's just not treating the person. Now it's treating the person, but making sure that 5 other places outside of the business are happy with how you're treating that person on top of it, right? And how do we manage that? So one of my things is, one, I don't take anything personal when it comes to business, right? So we show up and we run our business, we hire people appropriately to make it happen, and we do the best we absolutely can. For me, if I notice that I am losing energy, not really excited in the morning of waking up and having to deal with people, that's a problem for me. You know, like if I'm not excited about my business in the morning, then I need to check what I'm doing out like on my time off, you know? Because I need to be passionate about what I want to do. I'm not doing this because like why be miserable, right? That's like
Yes.
well, like why like I'm not here to be miserable. I'm here to make a difference and help people. So like for me on the weekends, or sometimes it's not the weekends, you know, whenever I see fit, like sunlight for me is huge. So attached to water, like everyone has their things, right? And I say this a lot, and everyone's like, okay, but when you have to find something that makes you happy outside of work in addition to all your other responsibilities, you know, and like whatever that is, if it's meditation or whatever. Mine is being on a boat, being on the water, in front of the water, bringing in that like that energy for me soothes my soul. But I mean that stuff's huge, you know. And then when it comes to the work side of things, of you know being overwhelmed or not making feeling like I'm not showing up, also I had to learn that us as one person can't handle everything. You know, like it's really easy for me to be like, well, there's 15 tasks to do in the next 15 minutes. It's really easy for me to take all of them on. At some point in time, we have to build a really good, solid team and delegate appropriately to those people and trust the team that you're building, that they're going to make it happen. Once I realized that in my career, my business and life in general has become that much easier to obtain more projects, build more. Everyone always says, like, how do you guys expand? What are you doing? How are you getting burnt out? It's because we're building a really good team with us, you know, and it's not just me, it's not just our partners, it's the team behind us too.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sam, you know, having Ascend now has facilities across the country. Congratulations on that growth and expansion. What is the most, you know, being in different parts of the country and seeing the different legislation in different states, you know, what is the most stark difference, I guess, in all of the facilities that you guys are, you know, acquiring? And
I mean, we're besides like the licensing and different things when it comes to regulatory bodies, because there's always a little nuances and different changes with every state you go. I wish one day it would be across the board for the country, you know, to be able to just to care for everyone the same. But besides that, we kind of hit on it earlier, is the staffing difference. So I started my career in 2007 in South Florida. It was during the kind of the start of the treatment industry down here, right? So it was where a lot of people got their start in the industry. We had a lot of credentialed, really great licensed therapists at our fingertips, super passionate. It was the recovery capital of the world, you know, like that was where everyone went, right? So I was spoiled in a sense to be used to having all these great credentialed licensed professionals around me and understood the industry for years, you know, and had a ton of experience. But then when you take your mission and realize that where you're working, there's a lot of resources already, and you realize your mission has changed to bring those resources outside of your area to the places that need it the most, comes with that is not the correct staffing because they don't have those resources in the first place, right? So that's been like one of our biggest changes, is just kind of learning how to navigate really through that, you know, through the staffing struggles. I love our staff in every location, and we're super, super grateful and blessed to have them all. And alongside of that, though, we've had a lot of changes, like especially in the West Coast. We have a location in New Mexico. We had a lot of changes since we opened there just because of that, you know, of finding the right people that align with our vision, to understanding what it takes to work on a daily basis in this industry too. It's not always a 9-to-5 clock out type of job that we have, you know, and you need to find that right individual that's willing to show up, you know, and also implementing better trainings too, to train our staff to make sure that like we can build it, you know, like we can have professional development courses within our company. That way we have the people, like we can make our team wherever we are at that point, you know. It's ends up barely being about the training is what I've noticed.
Yeah, I think what was surprising to me as we ventured into different parts of the country, you know, in the Northeast, we're very similar with, we were in Southeast Florida in the sense where all these treatment centers were. In fact, everybody from New Jersey was going down to Florida because we only had like 2 or 3 centers in New Jersey at the time when I was getting, first sober. So even myself, every treatment center that I went to was out of the state of New Jersey because there wasn't that much available. And it was interesting though, we still had a higher, I guess, acuity for medical in general, just in the Northeast, because we're in close proximity to New York. So when a lot of people needed it, all of a sudden there was a lot of therapists available and psychiatrists and, treatment centers started popping up. But we were talking about, with CFC, we were on the forefront. We bought peer support services and multiple pathways, smart recovery, all that kind of stuff 14 years ago to New Jersey. And we were talking about it then. And it took New Jersey probably about 5 years before it became all the industry people started saying multiple pathway, peer support services. We brought help to our grants. And it just became, it was talked about. And when we went down to Southwest Florida and we opened up our facility, Calusa, there 2 years ago, they're just starting to talk about peer support specialists. And I'm like, wait, did I just go through a time warp? And like I didn't, silly me and ignorant me, I just thought, if I'm hearing it here, it's being heard everywhere. And that's not even the fact. And which was crazy to me because if you go to East Coast, like directly across Alligator Alley, totally different landscape with recovery in terms of like the progressiveness. You got TMS and EMDR, everybody's specialized in something. And you go over West Coast and you're lucky if you find a social worker, it's crazy to me. And it's now so apparent why, Midwest states struggle so hard to create resources there. And especially when I see anybody that you do find on Southwest Florida, they're all from the Midwest and they all traveled in. So not only are they scarce, they're moving over to Florida. So, and they're so desperately needed, especially in those rural type states, just with the epidemic with opiates, methamphetamine. They've been struggling with methamphetamine since the 90s now. And there's still a lack of resources there. And I don't know how we can create better improvements, us as treatment center owners that are expanding to these states, because there is such a need for resources out there. And we see that and we have a passion to help people in those areas. I'm trying to come up with ways, how do we fix that? How do I create a, special program just for social workers to be able to, like traveling nurses, but for social work, because how many people are willing from Florida to move to Fargo, North Dakota, right? No, but they need treatment there, right? So how do we come up with a creative way that people can make a living and we could get resources where there's a lack thereof, Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know. Maybe we gotta sit down and have a brainstorm about this.
There's a huge need for it. We definitely need to make sure that everybody in other areas are equipped to handle our population that we serve on a daily basis. And I think that's the biggest miss. I love the idea, right? I mean, I think that's why we started building a national team to begin with, because we knew that we wanted to open up in other locations. We're like, how do we do that if there's nobody there in the first place? We bring a national team in, and train them and sit with them and spend the time, and that's just part of the growth phase, and like learning what works the best. But I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. Because when we get clients from out of state and we'll get random calls, somebody in North Dakota, someone, out in Oklahoma coming to New Jersey, and, it's like they find recovery here. They're like, I love this. I can do this. And then you're trying to set up an aftercare program for them. And you're like, there's nothing really available to you. And what are you supposed to tell that person? You can never go home? And so everybody deserves access at the end of the day. And yes, with COVID, virtual care has been out there. You can find a smart recovery meeting, a 12-step meeting online anywhere. but it's not the same. It's not the same as being in person and having that fellowship and support system around you. So I think we as treatment providers and industry people, we all need to put our heads together and figure out, how do we get resources to these areas? How do we get people that are passionate, that come with these credentials, into these areas that need help?
Yeah. And I think that is what they're attempting to do with like recovery community organizations. But, you know, there's barriers with that. And funding is always a barrier, and getting those grants and getting, you know, if each state was to designate a community county resource, but it wasn't run by the state, it was grassroots, we might see some difference. That's what I think is the difference, because they've tried to do it. But
Totally agree, Ashley.
Yeah, I mean, we just got this opiate settlement money in, and it's slowly being kind of allocated where it's supposed to go. I've heard of a couple little programs that it's going towards, but there really needs to be someone that comes in and like ties it all together and makes a full continuum of care with these monies and this funding. What I always see with grant funding is that it's dispersed in little pieces of the puzzle, and the puzzle never comes together, right? It's just everybody doing a little piece, and silly to say, everybody thinks like competition only exists in for-profit world, right? That is not the case. There's just as much, if not more, competition in the nonprofit world, because everybody's trying to go over the same funding, and it becomes a competition of the best do-gooder when it comes to getting funding.
I actually think it's worse.
Yeah, so and that's what happens. So if people win grants, and I gotta keep this because that's how I'm allowing these people who work for me to get a paycheck at the end of the day, and that's how I'm going to help people and continue my mission. But what that does is it spreads the puzzle around, and it never comes together and actually operates efficiently. So maybe we need to get some politicians' ears, bring it all together.
I'll leave that up to you, Steve, because you've got nothing else going on.
Yeah.
Just kidding. All right, Steve, I have a few final questions for both you, and I'll start with you, Steve. What are your hopes and dreams for Port Charlotte Detox in the next couple years and the long-term future?
I mean, I just want to see it grow, right? Establish, a place that's safe where people actually get better, expand off of that, spread the name through the national brand, which would tie into every other location, and just be a presence, and be active in the community, and just see, the flourishing of the entire thing, coming together. And we have plans to expand. We're currently in the process of that. But I don't want to sell ourselves short by any means. I really want to go in this with a full set of, full steam ahead, right? And just, be something to reckon with in the best way possible, that people, when they hear Port Charlotte Detox or Ascend, they know that I want to go there because people get well there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what do you have any advice for anybody that's looking to start their own business in the industry and is really passionate and excited? And do you have any advice for them?
Make sure that you prioritize self-care. Learn as much as possible. Have a good plan in place, and have systems. I mean, that is everything, because once you identify the system, you get that up and running, then you can adopt it and, scale from there.
Awesome. Thank you. And Sam, for Ascend's growth and everything you guys have accomplished, are there any upcoming initiatives or projects that you're most excited about, and where do you see, your team growing to in the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's just been a great experience so far since we've started building out the Ascend brand. We've grown quite quickly than we originally expected to, and that's just us putting our heads down and going to work and just trying to do the best we can with getting the resources out there. We do have some plans to expand in 2025. We're looking to add a few more locations to the Ascend brand. We're really excited about that. Our big total vision is to really bring those resources to the most underserved areas in the country. That's been our mission since day one, and we're going to continue to do that until we feel like there's enough resources on our end that we can provide, while still maintaining a small, intimate feel. For us, that's just been my mission. I big centers are great, you know, everyone gets great care for them too. Every individual different, you know, so I just feel that we need to have different options for everybody. You know, I always say that I was the fly under the radar kind of girl. I could blend in really quick and sit in the back of a room and no one would even know if I was there or gone, you know. So for me, I'm passionate about keeping it small and intimate per location, even if we get to the 15 locations that we would like to have over the next handful of years, but still have each of them intimate where no one can fly under the radar. That's the big vision, and that's what I'm really excited for.
Awesome. Yeah. Do you have any other questions for Sam and Steve?
When do we get lunch?
Yeah, when are we getting lunch? Next week. Then I come down there next week.
Well, guys, we're just super excited for you, and obviously being, you know, in the same neighborhood area of Port Charlotte, we love working with you guys, and your vision aligns very much with ours, and we just look forward to, you know, seeing where the future takes everybody. And thank you guys so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having us
Thank
on.
you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much. Looking forward to see you guys soon.
Yeah, see you soon. Have a good day, guys. Bye.
Thank you for joining the Healing Us podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe and like, and tune into the next episode.